for those of you who are watching this at home, welcome to the Laguna Woods Democratic Club's meeting. The Laguna Woods Democratic Club is doing its best to bring all the Democratic candidates in local races to speak here, so that you can make up your minds for yourselves about whom you would like to vote for. Today we have with us one candidate for California's State Senate, District 37, Alex Mohajer. We were hoping the other Democratic candidate, Senator Josh Newman, would be here, but his wife is having surgery. We have invited him for a future meeting, so we hope that that will work out. We are having another candidate forum September 19th, at which you will see 3 Democratic candidates for Congressional District 47, and that is Dom Jones, Dave Min, and Joanna Weiss. As you know, Laguna Woods is divided into 2 different congressional districts. Most of Laguna Woods is in Congressional District 40, and you will hear those 2 candidates tonight. Okay, but there is a small sliver of Laguna Woods that is in CD 47. Now, let's review the process for this forum, which will be in 2 parts. The California State Senate part, which will be first, and that will be followed by the U.S. Congressional District 40 candidates. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce him or herself. Then they will be asked 6 questions, which were submitted by club members and board members, and they will have 2 minutes each to answer each of those 6 questions. The candidates have not seen the questions ahead of time. Then the candidates will have 2 minutes for closing comments. Alan Feldman, sitting right here, will be the timer, and Jonathan Adler, sitting right here, will be the moderator asking the questions. I will introduce the candidates only briefly, and then they will tell you about themselves. So we will start with the introduction for Alex, who can now maybe come forward and sit at his seat so that you see his name and can connect his name with his face. Okay, he doesn't get to sit for very long. You can decide, the candidates can decide, if you want to speak from up here from the podium, you can. If you would prefer to stand at the table, you can do that, right? Jonathan will ask the questions from up here, from the podium. Okay, Alex Mohajer is a candidate for State Senate District 37. He is an Irvine native and a lawyer. He was the first millennial and first Iranian American elected president of the Stonewall Democrats, one of the nation's oldest LGBTQ+ political advocacy organizations. For the past 10 years, he has been working in public service as a civil service advocate for the County of Los Angeles. Please join me in welcoming Alex Mohajer.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Mohajer, and tonight I want to tell you a story about the promise of America. It's a story about a young woman who immigrated here to Irvine, California from Iran to give her kids the opportunities that she didn't have. She was a single mom of 4 who spoke barely any English and worked a good union job for 25 years while going to school at night just to put food on the table and to make sure her kids had access to good public schools. She's my mom, and she's sitting right there. That good union job allowed her to work on weekends and earn time and a half because of her union contract, and that was the only way we could afford rent in Irvine. I shared a bedroom with her until I was 17 years old, and it was because of that struggle and that sacrifice that I was able to go to good public schools in Irvine, California. And when my family couldn't afford to send me to college right away, I attended Irvine Valley College before getting into UC Berkeley, one of the best public universities in the world. And when it was time to go to law school, I attended Chapman University School of Law, where I graduated with a JD in 2011. I've been working for the past decade in public service, working to get discrimination and sexual harassment out of the workplace. And as an activist and an organizer, I've been fighting for women's rights, LGBTQ equality, and marginalized communities my entire adult life, which in 2021 led to my election as president of the Stonewall Democrats, one of the nation's oldest and largest LGBTQ political advocacy groups. But the world is a different place than when I grew up here. Our country is so divided, our politics is so broken. We've lived through Trump, George Floyd, COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, an insurrection, a climate change crisis, an unhoused crisis. I'm worried that we're not making good on the American promise for the next generation, and I'm worried that we're not taking care of the generation that preceded us, which is why I'm running for California State Senate. I understand the struggle and sacrifice of families like mine and the value of a good public education, which is why I'm going to fight for the economic dignity of working class families, small business owners, teachers, and seniors right here at home. I want to make sure that every Californian has access to quality health care and mental health resources so that our loved ones get the care they need when they need it, and the most vulnerable among us don't fall through the cracks. And together, we're going to tackle this climate change crisis head on to make sure our beaches and our neighborhoods stay beautiful and that we bring a clean energy economy right here to Orange County. And for my mom, and for the people of Iran who are fighting for their basic human rights, I want to show them and the world that right here in Orange County, the openly gay son of Iranian working class immigrants can make history and grow up to become its next state senator. So I can't do it alone. I need your help, and I'm very excited to be here with you tonight and look forward to answering your questions. Mr. Adler.
Okay. Well, welcome. First, your strategy. Please give examples of your strategy for winning this election.
Well, we have already garnered a lot of excitement about this race because of the history that we're going to make. If elected, I'll be the first openly gay legislator elected from Orange County. I'll be the only Iranian in the California state legislature at a time where the Iranian community here is deeply activated because of the ongoing protests in Iran. And we have the largest diaspora of Iranians here in Orange County outside of Iran, and they've never been enfranchised meaningfully into the political process. So I'm going to go to that community and I'm going to bring them in. We have the highest density of higher education in this district, of college students. They have been turning out to vote, and we're going to go to young voters and we're going to get them excited, and they are getting excited about this race. We're going to bring them into this process, and we think they're excited about, well, the truth is I'll be considerably younger than the average of the California state legislator, which is saying something because I've got a sciatica right now that's killing me. But I think we're going to get them excited about it, and they're excited about the history we're going to make in this district. We've received a lot of national press already. Just last month, I was named one of the 50 most inspirational LGBTQ people in the country, and I'm very excited to do it. And we've done a great job fundraising because people are excited. We've raised over $117,000 already in just the first quarter, and we've done it without taking a cent of corporate PAC money, fossil fuels money, or corporate health care money. This district is a climate district. It's a district that cares about climate change, and unfortunately our Orange County legislators have taken some money from fossil fuels and have not always been a reliable vote on climate. So we're going to build a coalition of AAPI voters, Iranians, young people, and we're going to get climate voters on board to make sure we get this over the finish line.
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much. Next up is SCOTUS rulings. What could and should our legislators do to defend California against Supreme Court rulings that attack civil liberties and democracy itself?
Thanks for that question. I see we have some congressional candidates here. They've got their work cut out for them, because a lot of why I wanted to run for the state legislature here is I am clear that we have a federal government that is, we have the House goes back and forth between parties. We've got a Senate that has an anti-democratic filibuster in it, and despite the fact that Democrats represent 30 million more Americans in the US Senate than Republicans do, we can't get bills passed with the filibuster. And the Supreme Court stacked by unpopularly elected Republican presidents, and stolen, let's just be honest, stolen those seats. And now want to ram through these heinous rulings that roll back rights for women, LGBTQ people, immigrants. So, here in California, we have to get serious about being leaders on these issues, on protecting marginalized communities. We need to enshrine LGBTQ rights into law here. We need to make sure this is a safe haven for women to come here and get gender-affirming and reproductive health care so that we're leaders on this. We need to be leaders on global climate change issues here in the state of California. We are the 4th largest economy in the world. The 4th largest economy in the world. We have the power to have a significant impact on our global emissions. And so if we can be global leaders here on these issues, protect our marginalized communities, we can fight back and do quite a good job of fighting back against the Supreme Court that's hell-bent on rolling back our rights.
Thank you. Seniors, what do you see as the 3 most important issues currently facing seniors in our district?
Poverty, housing, and economic insecurity. So a little bit of stats for you, because this is something I care about. Mom's a senior, and I'm very worried about this issue. The number of seniors is going to triple by the year 2060. We have 5 million seniors who are currently relying on Social Security, disability, and survivor benefits. 5.5 million of them are unable to make ends meet with those benefits. 30% of our seniors are experiencing food insecurity. 50% of all elderly people are renters. 28% of those renters here in Orange County don't have enough income to meet their needs, and 45% of homeless individuals here in California are above the age of 50. The fastest growing population of unhoused people in the state of California are our senior citizens. The high cost of living and inadequate funding for affordable housing has created a shortage of housing solutions for our seniors, and there aren't enough assisted living facilities in the state to fulfill senior living accommodations. Right now, the average wait to get into a senior living facility is 1 to 3 years, and there are thousands of people who are waiting to get into Medi-Cal's assisted living program. Healthcare. The cost of healthcare for seniors is exorbitant, and post-COVID, we've seen an increase in depression, sleep disorders, anxiety, and degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia. So we need to amend the law to make sure that medical share cost programs are more affordable in this state. We need housing stabilization subsidies in this state for senior citizens, which would allow tens of thousands of seniors and disabled people to keep and access housing. And we need to amend the California Act that allows long-term facilities to house only 5 or 6 people. We need to increase that number and make sure these facilities can house more people. We need to tackle this issue right now, and we need to get ahead of this growing crisis, especially as the unhoused crisis continues to grow in this state. Sorry.
Thank you. California has a growing divide between the haves and the have-nots. Housing is just one example. Please give examples of how you would help the millions who are falling further into poverty each year.
Well, I'm committed to passing and supporting economic policies that lift up working class people, because they're the backbone of our economy and we are leaving them behind. We need policies that lift up people out of poverty. That means simple things like expanding paid family leave, making sure that if somebody is sick, that they don't lose their livelihoods or lose their jobs just because they got sick. We need affordable housing in this state. So I am a proponent of reforming the Costa-Hawkins law, which limits municipalities and their ability to have rent control measures so that we can get affordable housing units and make sure people can afford to live in their homes. And we need to expand Medi-Cal and Medicare access. We can't allow people to lose their livelihoods because of the exorbitant cost of healthcare. And we know if we give people access to healthcare and access to good education, we give them access to housing, we are lifting them up out of dire circumstances, lifting them up out of poverty. We are increasing their wellness and their livelihoods. So I'm going to support these initiatives, and we need to invest in our communities if we want to really tackle the economic disparities. All of my policies are going to center economic and environmental and social justice, meaning we're going to look at the communities that are most marginalized and make sure that underrepresented communities have the resources and the access that they need to get ahead. And that's very important to me as a person, who grew up on food stamps and shared a bedroom with his mom until he was 17. Started working when I was 14 years old, 15 years old, just to help chip in to the family pot. I'm worried that even with those circumstances now, people can't get ahead. They need to work multiple jobs just to be able to afford rent. And in a modern Western society, that's unacceptable.
Thank you. Why do some bills in the California Senate, which seem to have wide support, suddenly get stopped before reaching a floor vote with little or no explanation?
Why are you doing this to me? Okay, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. Unfortunately, although we have a Democratic supermajority in the state of California, sometimes, once in a while, our Democratic legislators accept money from problematic special interest groups, including the fossil fuels industry, corporate PACs, and healthcare lobbies, and police associations. And we have legislators here in Orange County who get a little pressure from some of these special interest groups and then abandon bills that they drafted and wrote, like the Vision Act, which would have stopped, was an immigrants' rights bill, a good bill, which would have stopped the unlawful transfer of detainees to ICE. So, I've pledged to take no corporate PAC money, no fossil fuels money, and no corporate health care money, so I can be free to advocate for real solutions for the families and the people in this district, and so that we relinquish these industries and these special interest groups. They don't have such a grip on our elected politics. And if we start holding our elected officials to account and ask them to not take money from these problematic special interest groups, I think you'll see a lot more productivity out of the legislature and a lot better bills getting passed.
Special interest money, I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. The future. What do you think will be the most important issues facing Californians in the next few years?
Climate change. Climate change. Thank you. I was 8 years old riding my bike down Westfield Loop in Irvine to Alderwood Basics Plus Elementary School. And I remember getting instruction on climate change. And I'm now 38. It is 30 years later. I drive down the same stretch of road and I ask, where are the electric vehicles? Where are the solar canopies? Where are the charging ports and stations? Where are the clean energy initiatives? We are not moving fast enough on climate change. I have a host of economic proposals that I want to make. I want to electrify public schools and buildings. I want to transition our state's fleet of vehicles from gas to electric vehicles. Zero-emission vehicles are going to be really important. 60% of emissions in California and in the country come within the purview of the individual homeowner, which means if we can transition away from gas appliances to electric, if we can transition from water heaters to heat pumps, that we can reduce our emissions by up to 60% in this state. We need market EV incentives for state employees. I am a supporter of SB 49, which is currently before the legislature, which would provide solar canopies to parking lots and solar roadways. SB 253, this is very important, corporate disclosure. Corporations are the worst polluters in the state, yes, and we need them to publicly share what their carbon footprint is if we want to adequately regulate it, and codifying our 30 by 30 plan in this state to make sure our land and coastal waters are conserved. These are just some of the things that we can do, but we need to be moving much quicker on climate change, and I think it is the most pressing issue our country and our state faces.
Alex, you now have 2 minutes for closing, so everything that you didn't get a chance to say, this is your chance.
Running for this position is not something I ever saw for myself or thought that I would do. I took a look at the California state legislature and realized we don't have any Iranians in the California state legislature at a time where there's a women's rights movement happening in Iran. For the last 11 months, people have been chanting in the streets, Zan Zindagi Azadi, woman, life, freedom. Every Sunday, hundreds of Iranian people are congregating on the corner of Westia Loop and Culver in Irvine, demanding that people pay attention to the ongoing civil rights crisis that's happening in Iran. Last September, 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in Iran was killed merely for having a few strands of her hair exposed. And it sparked the largest protests in Iran in over a decade. And my community is deeply activated by this, and it's a community that's never been meaningfully enfranchised into the political process by either party, and they're eager and ready to go. I want to bring Iranian people into this conversation, and I want to tell them, if you care about women's rights and LGBTQ rights, and you care about civil rights and human rights in Iran, then you must also care about women's rights and LGBTQ rights and voting rights and immigrants' rights here in the United States, because those rights are under active assault. It's a republic if you can keep it. I'm really worried about the state of our democracy, and I think that this race in particular has the opportunity to enfranchise people into the political process, bring them in, and help us build long-term Democratic Party power in this district if we have the courage to elect a new generation of diverse, intersectional leaders born and raised in this community, who represent this community, who are going to advocate for this community, and who won't be beholden to the same special interest groups that have been holding us back from meaningful progress. It would be an honor to earn your support. I really appreciate having a few minutes to chat with you all tonight, and thank you.
Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and well, now we've got 2 microphones. Now you can go back and be part. Now you can go back and be part of the audience. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you. And ask Allison Munoz, Damicolas, and Joe Kerr to come forward and take seats at the table. Okay. Now, you all know that Laguna Woods is in 2 congressional districts. What are they? Okay, you're all so smart. Thank you. Okay? And Allison and Joe are running in the 40th, where most residents of Laguna Woods live. Okay? The procedure will be exactly the same as it was for Alex, except that now we have 2 candidates to speak. So Allison will start and give her opening remarks, and then Joe will give his opening remarks. Then they will each be asked 6 questions, the same 6 questions in turn, and they will alternate. First Allison will respond first, then Joe, etc., and there's an even number of questions. And then they will each have 2 minutes for the closing remarks. And since Allison will be starting with her opening remarks, Joe will start with his closing remarks. Okay? So we try to make it as fair as we can. All right? So, and Jonathan will once again be asking the questions, and Alan will be doing the timing. Sorry, he moved. Okay. Thank you. All right, I would now like to introduce Allison Muñez de Nicolas. She is a Southern California native and a chemical engineer and mother of 3. In 2020, Allison was elected trustee to the Tustin United School Board, defeating a 24-year incumbent. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you all. Before I get started, I wanted to thank you all for being here. One of the things I've learned campaigning is that there is too much apathy. And so thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. So I'm Allison Muñez de Nicolas, and to tell you a little bit about myself, I grew up in a Hispanic family. I'm one of 4. I'm the oldest, and if you can't tell that I'm the oldest of the 4 and the only girl, then you weren't listening, because clearly I'm the oldest. But it was tough growing up. We were in a very chaotic environment, and truly I was on free and reduced lunch. And early on in my childhood, I realized that education would be a way to a much more stable future. And I watched my mom struggle, who was a union cafeteria worker. And so I worked really hard in school, and I ended up getting a chemical engineering degree from Cal Poly Pomona. And after school, I worked in the environmental field. So I cleaned up hazardous waste, and I did environmental samples. And so, and then I got married, and I had 3 children. And what I didn't expect is that 2 of my daughters would be born with a very rare condition. And their prognosis truly wasn't great. It truly was terrible, in fact. And so I dedicated my life, at that point I was going to go back to work. I dedicated my life to not only keeping them alive, but truly making sure that they had lives that they could live on their own independently. And with that being said, I will tell you, to cut to the chase, I see many mothers in the room. My older daughter, who is 17 now, is a 4.6 GPA student at high school, and plays in the 2nd best orchestra in the country, the violin. And my youngest daughter is an 8th grader, is going to be an 8th grader, and she's doing well too. But it was that involvement with their school and advocating for them that I realized that there was a whole bunch of my community that wasn't being advocated for. I was a PTO president. Many of you probably were very involved in your children's schools. And I was involved in many different levels, not just because I was active in special ed, but in many different ways. So I thought I'd run for school board, and I ran against a 24-year incumbent who I was told I would never beat her. I raised some of the most amount of money ever for a school board race. I had raised $100,000 for that race, and I beat her by almost 10 points. And then 8 months later, I was attempted to be recalled from that seat by some big Republican groups. They were in my neighborhood, they were at every grocery store, and I defeated that again. And so what I'd like to tell you is that I beat odds all the time, and I am going to beat young Kim. I just need your help. I have an incredible amount of grassroots effort. I've already raised $155,000 in 4 weeks from almost 500 individual donors. So I think that speaks to my grassroots excitement on my campaign. And so thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you more.
Thanks so much, Allison. All right, now I'd like to introduce Joe Kerr, who is also running for Congress in the 40th CD. An Orange County native. We're so fortunate to have all these Southern California natives here. Joe Kerr served as a fire captain with the Orange County Fire Authority and Orange County Fire Department for over 34 years. He was the first president of the Orange County Professional Firefighters Association, the former vice president of the California Professional Firefighters, and a former vice president of the Orange County Central Labor Council, the AFL-CIO. Please join me in welcoming Joe Kerr.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Laguna Woods Dems, thank you for being here, and thank you for the invite. I do appreciate it. It's what you're doing here at the grassroots level is what makes everything work. You know, 20 years ago, the chair of the Democratic Party of Orange County, Frank Barbera, said we could have fit the entire Democratic Party into a phone booth. And here you guys are making it happen. Thank you for the introduction. I am retired fire captain, come from a family of firefighters, police officers, sheriff deputies, Navy SEALs, and Marines. Public services in our family. I represented firefighters on the local, state, and federal level. I've gotten about 200 bills signed by 5 governors and 2 presidents dealing with public safety and bringing taxes back home to the taxpayers. When we created our own fire association, it was because of the county bankruptcy. It was the largest bankruptcy in the world at the time, December 6, 1994. Governor Pete Wilson, a Republican, was going to lay off 50% of our firefighters and 100% of our paramedics. So you would pay an extra fee for your paramedic service that you get every day from Station 22, Station 57, Station 51, areas that I've worked. So we beat that. Then we created our own healthcare system, and for firefighters, which is kind of a high-risk occupation, and we returned $2 million our first year of taxpayer funds. We created our own wellness fitness program and lowered workers' compensation costs by to a 6-year low. And we pre-funded retiree health care to a point where even Governor Schwarzenegger have to say that the Orange County firefighters are the cornerstone of pension reform for the state of California. We did all that here in Orange County, and we could do it here across the country. I was also a Democrat on the Democratic Central Committee, State Committee member, ADEM delegate, and a party executive board member for the state under former Senator John Burton, and a convention delegate. The reason why I'm running is we want to get back to protecting women's rights to privacy, making her own healthcare decisions, and we'll work to codify Roe v. Wade. That's something that's going to be very important. Ending gun violence here in Orange County, across the country. I've been on gunshot wounds. I know what it's about. Preserving Social Security and Medicare, lowering insulin prices. You saw that finally came through to fruition, and solving affordable housing and homelessness and so forth. Right now my endorsements are, and we have a couple more we're going to bring out next week, is the entire congressional delegation from Orange County, Congresswoman Katie Porter, Congressman Mike Levin, Congressman Lou Correa, State Senator Tom Umberg, former Senator Joe Dunn, Assembly Member Sharon Quirk Silva, the firefighters and some unions and so forth. And to ramp up our fundraising, we just brought on President Joe Biden's and Gavin Newsom's fundraisers for Southern California so we can go to the next level. I started the campaign in the middle of a quarter, so we decided to emphasize endorsements and to get a strong, long game going, because beating young Kim is going to be very difficult. But in this demographic, and why I was asked to run, is because a retired firefighter can beat young Kim. And I thank you for the time, and I appreciate your support.
Here is your question, which will also be Joe's question after you. In last November, our Democrat lost to young Kim by 13.5 percentage points. Please give examples of your strategy to turn out more Democrats, as well as MPPs and sensible Republicans, and to win this election.
That's a great question. Because I've done this already once, just at a smaller level. So it's almost the exact same demographics of my school board race. And so it was a 6-point Republican district, so this is actually somewhat easier, although bigger. And so there's a few ways that we're going to win it. One, I'm going to do what I just did in 4 weeks, raise that kind of money. So I sit on a phone 30 to 40 hours a week in call time, and I'm raising money every single day. That's what I do. I apply hard work. I do the beating the odds, but I did my whole life working really hard. The second thing is to making sure that we have as many grassroots support on the ground. And I will tell you that we have hundreds of people already willing to knock doors for us. That's exactly how I won the school board race, and that's exactly how I was able to fight back that recall. We had people out walking doors. That's exactly what we did the second time. And so the third thing is that we make sure that we get Democrats out to vote. And I will tell you that in my school board race, not only did I get Democrats out to vote because they saw me as a candidate that they wanted to see on a school board. I was the first Latina elected in over 30 years. I'm the only woman on that board right now. But it's, so making sure we get Democrats out to vote. I got a ton of MPPs, and I even got a fair amount of Republicans. So I know I can do this exact same thing with this race. And so thank you.
The last race was a midterm. The turnout was not good. The candidates in the 40th and the 47th Congressional District, they're advocates, they're consultants invested in television. And in order to win this seat, to flip this seat, to flip the House, this is one of the top 7 races in the country. It's one of the top 5 races in California. And all roads lead through this. We flip this seat, we flip the House. They all invested in television. In order to win in this district, I worked as a fire captain in 9 of the cities in this district. I represented firefighters in every city in this district. I spent millions of dollars as the president of firefighters, having people elected and democratic causes. In order to win in this district, you have to walk, you have to talk, and you have to get out there and get the vote. You have to get out in the district like Katie Porter did. You have to get out there like Harley Ruda did. You have to get out there like Mike Levin did. And as Lou Correa said, don't come back unless there's holes in the bottom of your shoes, Joe. And that's how they flipped the seats in 2018. We had a blue wave back then. We're hoping for a blue wave now. But in order to win this seat, you have to raise the money, you have to get the endorsements, you have to marry Democrats with labor. There are 90 unions in this county, 200,000 members. There are 1,200 unions in this state, 1.2 million members, and there are 12 million union folks across the country. And you marry Democrats with labor and first responders. But you walk, you knock, and you talk, and we'll flip this seat. Thank you.
And this question is not a reference to the movie The Graduate and the guy who advised Dustin Hoffman, Benjamin, what business to go into. Here's the question. France has banned 3 types of plastic. Thailand has banned 3 types of plastic. Germany passed a packaging act. Should Congress be considering this type of legislation?
Yeah, we have to look at everything. We have to look at every arrow in the quiver. Lake Tahoe, the most pristine lake on the planet, just reported more microplastics in Lake Tahoe than we have at our beaches. Lake Tahoe, more microplastics because of the runoff. And the runoff is exacerbated by wildfire. 2 years ago, Lake Tahoe was under siege by wildfires. And the wildfire gets rid of the watershed. The watershed allows for erosion, siltation, it clogs the waterways, and it brings down all that debris to the lake. So yes, I think we need to look at those types of bans, and we need to look forward. I was on the water board. I was appointed to the California Water Quality Control Board by Governor Newsom in 2020. I left as vice chair last year. And 2/3 of the wells here in Orange County are polluted with forever chemicals. Microplastics, forever chemicals, it's affecting all of us. Right now, 3 out of 4 of my firefighters in Orange County and across the country are dying of cancer. 3 out of 4. I think you may want somebody flip their mic off or something. That sounded inappropriate. I mean, turn the mic down. I'm so sorry. But right now, forever chemicals and microplastics are a real problem, and we should consider a ban on that. Absolutely. That's me.
So I actually cleaned up stuff like this. I sampled, and I have a good understanding of plastics, especially as a chemical engineer. Absolutely, we should do that. But we've got to, understanding that the problem actually is way bigger, right? We've got to not just ban plastics. We have to work with manufacturers. I did manufacturing. As an intern, I also manufactured through college. So I was on a manufacturing line. We did airline parts. But we have to take very practical solutions. So it's not just even looking at the plastics. It's even going further back and making sure that we have reusable energy sources everywhere, right? So that it's not just about microplastics getting into our environment. It's about cradle to grave and making sure that the plastics that we are using, the ones that we are okay with, that how they're going to be recycled. The ones that we are going to allow, where are they going to go? And so as an example, solar panels, right? Solar panels are now, they need to be recycled, the first generation. We don't have a great solution. And so it's about making sure that we have cradle to grave, to ensure that we look at this problem holistically and not just very minutely and very in a small way. We really have to have, and so that's why you should have more engineers in Congress, truly. God love attorneys, but maybe we need a few more scientists, so.
Allison, what do you bring from your personal experience that you feel will help you in this election?
Well, I think there's a few things. One, I win elections, so we'll go with that one first. But also, I want to explain to you about the NRA. Young Kim takes money from the NRA, and I have to deal with that every single day. Not only as a mother who still sends her kids to school, and whose son's at a university where a mass shooting was just 200 miles away from him, and he called me from his university and said to me, "Mom, is everything okay?" And he sounded very weird, and it was truly because he was saying to me, "I'm afraid, and I want to make sure that I'm okay." And so one is my personal experience is that gun violence. Not only do I worry about my kids coming home every day from school, but as a school board member, I am literally deciding where we are going to spend money. And currently, we just did a pilot study for one of our schools where we authorized several $100,000 for one school site. We have 26 school sites to be able to put in automatic door locks and cameras. What could we have done with that money instead? Could we have bought better textbooks? Could we have hired more teachers? Could we have put more mental health specialists in there? What about even college counselors? It's so hard to get into college these days. So those are the type of personal experiences of why I'm running and why I can beat young Kim.
Thank you very much. That's a good one. I fix problems. Today I was on the phone with Governor Brown. Governor Brown signed a bill for the County of Orange back in 2015, 2016, when the County of Orange decided to sue the governor. And they lost all their vehicle license fee money. Vehicle license fee money is every time you register your vehicle. Some of that money goes to the state, some of it comes back home. We're a donor county. We get 6 cents back for every dollar we send to Sacramento. San Francisco gets almost 60 cents back. The average in the state is 14. You pay more than anybody else in the state of California. So I worked with the governor. He said, "Joe, you know you're the only one up here from the County of Orange and the only unelected in the room." I said, "Governor, if I brought the Board of Supervisors up here to meet with you, would you meet with them?" And he goes, "Oh, hell no." I go, "Well, that's why I'm up here, Governor, is to fix this." He goes, "I'm not giving those 5 people back their tax dollars." So, Governor, it's not 5 people. It's 3.3 million people. It's 1.6 million taxpayers. So I worked on, like I said, about 200 bills, signed by 5 governors and signed by 2 presidents. When FEMA didn't have money for your FEMA teams, that went to 9/11 and went to Katrina, we went to Congress. They're all throughout the year. I go every March, was there this March again, and I lobby on firefighter bills to bring money back home to support things like FEMA teams. We brought in over $1 billion to the Orange County Fire Authority. It took 25 years. Didn't happen overnight. And not 1 penny of it was in new taxes. We learned how to create efficiencies. We learned how to create good government. And we learned how to work across the aisle. And you have to. You have to work across the aisle. Because there are subcommittees run by Republicans. And if you're going to be a divider and not a uniter, you're not going to get anything done. So I bring 25 years of experience of getting things done, working with 5 governors, working with 2 presidents, and work with a lot of legislatures so we could bring money back home to Orange County. Thank you.
What would you do to develop coalitions in Congress and improve relationships? What would you do?
Well, you already got a good start. You got a good coalition from Orange County there. You got Congressman Katie Porter, you got Congressman Mike Levitt, you got Congressman Lou Correa, all in the surrounding districts right there. You have the Blue Dog Democrats. Those are the common sense Democrats who don't want to raise your taxes, but they want to solve problems, and they'll work with anybody to solve problems. And it's about common sense and pragmatic problem solving. And there's 435 people there. As you know, you need 218 votes to get a bill signed to get it out of the Congress. But we'll start building coalitions from day one, from Democrats across the country, from labor, As you know, the AFL-CIO building is right behind the White House. You can't go on the veranda of the AFL-CIO building without first calling the Secret Service at the White House. So they are there under the dome, and then our firefighters. The International Association of Firefighters, where I was a representative, is right next to the White House, 1750 New York Northwest. And they are top 10 biggest political action committee in the state capital, in the U.S. Capitol. So I'll build coalitions day one from all across the country, Democrats, public safety, and unions, working families, and so forth, and bring money back home and get things done. Thank you, sir. That's a good question.
I think the first thing I would do, though, is build a great team. And I'm going to give a shout out to two of my team members who are here today, two of my people who are staffing on my campaign. But so building a great team first is critical. And I know that not only as an engineer, but also as a mother. I know many of you, especially having 3 children, right, and 2 girls. But also on my school board, I have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and an independent. And for some of you who've been watching TV, you can know that school boards can be a very divisive place right now. And one of the things that we have done on our school board, which I would emulate in Congress, is we sit down and we talk, and we don't always agree, but there's always some way that we can start and we compromise. And I believe that we will do that in Congress, but right now we need to focus on flipping these seats, honestly. And so, yes, we will make sure. And so I will tell you that it's very interested groups of PACs are interested in my campaign, one of them which is a women's progressive PAC that are very interested in making sure that I'm elected, because I am Generation X. I'm a mom, and I'm a moderate in a way that I fight for kids and for families and for housing and for LGBTQ youth. And so I will tell you that it's building teams and coalitions, but also being practical as an engineer too.
How specifically do you plan to educate voters on what the GOP has really become?
That's a great question, truly. So whoever asked that, good question. But, so I'll go back to campaigning. What I've learned is you won't get your message out at all unless you fundraise, period. So I'm going to go back to that. You have to fundraise in order to get that message out. So you have to fundraise, as well as, which pays for researchers, right? Making sure that we have the research to make sure that voters understand that Young Kim absolutely takes special interest money and then votes their way, whatever they tell her to do, right? And so I will tell you that first defense to getting that message out is raising as much money as you can. The second way is making sure that we communicate with voters in many different ways. One, probably by paid media. 2, social media. We really have to reach our younger generation. That's where our younger generation are. They're on social media. And so, through social media, mail, it's expensive, but also, and then grassroots, campaigning, right? Knocking on doors, phone banking, exactly the same way I ran the first 2 races. So it's many ways, but making sure that we have the data so that we can communicate who I am and who she is, making sure we raise money. So I would be remiss to tell you that if you like what I'm saying tonight, please donate to my campaign.
Anybody who watched the news last January 6, 2020 kind of knows what some of the GOP has become. In this district, we do have MAGA Republican, someone who votes with the NRA and doesn't really see that. We had a mass shooting down the road from this very spot just a couple years ago, not that long ago, where a gentleman gave his life, and last full measure, quite a hero. And she doesn't seem to care about that, and that's pretty evident every day, that we're appointing Supreme Court members. Republicans are blocking people like President Obama from appointing anybody. Supreme Court members have taken away the rights of women. taking away the rights of LGBTQ plus, taking away the rights of people of color, taking away the rights of veterans, not funding veterans' health care, not funding or threatening to not fund Social Security and Medicare, and threatening to not reduce insulin costs and so forth, and not worrying about things like the donut hole that everybody has to deal with. I think every day people turn on either Fox or CNN or MSNBC, and they can decide for themselves what's wrong with America right now. But I think clearly people can see that the Republican Party's gone off course. That's why in this district you have so many NPP voters, decline to state, no political party voters. There's 84,000 of them in this district. What did my predecessor fail to do? And he's a very, very nice man. His team, his consultants failed to galvanize that base and bring those 3/4 of those 84,000 votes over to the Democrats. They stayed home. They didn't vote. They didn't see a chance for victory. So galvanizing the base and sharing the message that young Kim has done nothing for you. Her claim to fame is she got a post office named after one of her friends. That's it. So I think people are starting to get the message. And the fact that this room is full, I think we all got the message of what the Republicans are doing wrong. Thank you.
Why do you think you are the best candidate to defeat young Kim? And what do you plan to do to expose her weaknesses?
She already knows her weaknesses because she met with Todd Spitzer, the district attorney, and the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, last week because they're trying to claim the public safety mantra. They were here in Orange County talking about Chilean street gangs. Now, I was a first responder for 34 years. I've been on a lot of gunshot wounds and seen a lot of gangs. I've never seen Chilean street gangs. Their weakness is they've done nothing. They put politics over people. They don't really care about anybody other than spending more time keeping their job than doing their job, as somebody once said. So exposing what they do is not that difficult. What was the rest of the question? I got off track. I was getting into my mantra there.
What do you plan to do to expose her weaknesses?
She's done nothing. She's brought no money back. This district is a wildland urban interface. Wildland, if you can't control wildland fires, you can't control climate change. One of the biggest drivers of climatic extremes right now is the CO2 we put off from our wildfires. We burn 4 million acres a year. And a lot of the wildfire corridor is right here in Orange County on the Cleveland National Forest, 170,000 acres of state land that also burn every couple of years. We had 2 fires here today. There needs to be money coming back from Congress for fuel reduction, for hardening homes, for more firefighters, for people like you to feel like you're safe and so forth. So bringing money back to the district is something I'm going to do, and it's something she doesn't do and has never done. That's a pretty easy one. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna put this super simple. I win, period, all the time, and I hate to lose. And I'm also a Latina with a chip on my shoulder, so, bring it on. But I think the reason why I'm the best candidate is because I am an engineer. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I am right now in the thick of it all. As I said, my youngest daughter is 13 years old. They've got social media. I understand what it's like to raise kids right now, and I'm very afraid of their future, not only just for climate change, but also AI and all these things that are on the horizon that you need somebody like me to really make sure. Also, too, I'm a great candidate to put up against Jen Kim, and I know that she sees me as her opponent. Lastly, I'm a school board member, right? Right now, they are attacking public education. One of the tenets of democracy really believe that public education is the foundation for this country. And so what better than to have somebody in Congress than a chemical engineer who sat on a school board? I mean, I think that that's great. So how do I make sure that people understand exactly who she is? I think that was the second part of the question as well, correct? That was the second part, right? Making sure that she is. I'm going to go right back to what I keep saying, because that's how you win campaigns. You have to raise money, right? To make sure that the voters understand, as much as there are many of you in this room there are many more of you who are not engaged, and we have to make sure that they're engaged. And by doing that is explaining exactly who she is, and then painting the picture of exactly who I am. And so if you go to my website, you will see a video, and I will tell you that it shows a little of my family, but it also shows exactly who she is. And I plan to use that same winning strategy that I've won for 2 campaigns to apply that to this next one, and you can see it on my website.
So we've come to the closing statements. Joe, you're first on this one, 2 minutes. What you didn't get a chance to say.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. The questions are excellent. You're very plugged into what's going on, and the fact that there's a grassroots effort here, it really preserves democracy. This race is about flipping the house. It's about flipping the house from the folks who put politics over people, and about bringing common sense, pragmatic problem solving back to the United States Congress. That's what it's about. You know, not to sound cliche, but we are a country ruled by laws and not ruled by men. And over the last several years, we've seen some people think it's okay to have one man try to rule the country, and one man try to overturn an election and so forth. So we are going to be on the map on 2024 in the 40th Congressional District, and the Laguna Woods Dems, and the Dems in this district, as far as flipping the 40th and then flipping the House. And when we flip the House, we hope to have common sense, pragmatic problem solving, no more of the nonsense, no more of the craziness. I can't promise it's going to go away, but we'll get back to the business of the people rather than the business of the politicians. And that's what this is all about. I just really want to end with thanking all of you for being here. I can't tell you how refreshing it is. Like I said, being a Democrat and being with the party for 25 years, how refreshing it is to see a room full of folks who get involved. And I know you walk, and I know you knock. Everybody I've talked to, from Katie Porter to Harley and everybody else, is that you guys get it done. You get the votes there. Everybody votes. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Love to have your support. Thank you.
I think most of you already know who I am and what I stand for and kind of what I would bring. So I'm going to ask you to look at my website. I'm asking you to follow me on any social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter. And I'm also going to ask you to consider donating to my campaign, because that's how we do this. And so, and I will be around this evening to answer any questions, I believe, unless you have other business after this. But I'm hoping to earn your vote. Please contact my campaign. Oh, and I did want to say I'm so proud of my team. I didn't get to elaborate on that as much. Super diverse. I think they represent the Democratic Party and our ideals and our character. And I wanted to elaborate on that. Not only do I have a great amount of diversity in terms of Asian and different backgrounds of ethnicities, but also too I have a fair amount of LGBTQ people working on my campaign, and that was really important to me. And I think that shows who I am. And so, so those are the other things. Please ask us any questions. I have a wonderful team, so please reach out to us. Oh, and I did want to explain, I do have the endorsements of Katrina Foley, Connie Petrie-Norris, Dave Min, as well as Vincent de Sarmiento, as well as several mayors, Richard Hurt, Stephanie Otto, if she's not the mayor, and Letitia Clark and Tustin. And so, anyways, I hope that you follow us, and I hope that I earn your support. And please reach out if you have any other questions. Thank you.
It is so difficult to run for public office, and we thank you, the three of you, for being willing to give of yourselves to do that. I just, people have said to me before, oh, why don't you do that, Sue? I said, you'd have to be crazy, okay? You have no time for yourselves, absolutely none, and you're just on call 24 hours a day, and everybody pulling you in different directions. So it's a very difficult path you've chosen. You really have to want to serve the public. Thank you very much. And once more, big round of applause for Alex, Allison, and Joe.